of Ireland specifically with our favourite duo, Owen Heary and Barry Murphy. Lads, morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
So
Morning.
Stephen Bradley there chatting in the aftermath of Shamrock Rovers' 2-1 victory in Talca Park against Shelbourne. They're 6 points clear at the top of the league, but probably the biggest talking point, one of the biggest talking points from the weekend, is the beef continuing between Stephen Bradley and Damien Duff. It's all a bit mad, is it?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Brilliant.
It is brilliant. I think it's great. Like, listen, you look at Shamrock Rovers, they've gone to their rivals. They've gone, last year Shelbourne went and beat Shamrock Rovers, to the league title, stopped them getting their 5 in a row, took their title off them. Rovers go to Talca Park on Friday, go 12 points, clear them, and they go and celebrate. It's the way you should do. I think, like, to the victor go the spoils. That's the way you kind of have to look at it. And for Damon, he's kind of stoked this rivalry between the two last season, and it worked for them. There was a siege mentality going into last season. And then when you lose, on the opposite side of that, when you lose in that atmosphere, you got to sit in the dressing room and take that in the chin. You got to kind of listen to the dressing room next door. They've got to be quiet in yours, isn't it? You hear the songs being playing, the Maro Picotto song, like,
yeah,
Rovers
DJ Maro Picotto, he's not happy with it.
In a little bit there with Rovers, but you've got to take that in the chin for Damon and his team. When you kind of live by the sword, you got to die by it as well. And for him now, there's a little bit of distraction going on. The last couple of weeks, you've looked at him and gone in those kind of interviews, there's distracted tactics going on and everything. There's something different every week, and you kind of got to look at the performances on the pitch and say, listen, they're just not up to it at the moment. The results haven't been there, performances haven't been there, and that distraction isn't working now. When you're trying to make the noise off the pitch and you're not getting the results on it, then something's got to change, I think, for them in that dressing room.
Is this real or is this pantomime? Is this real beef?
Yeah, I think it is. I think going back to last year when Shels won the league and celebrating and entitled to it, I'd say Bradley would have used that as a motivation for this year. Listen to what's happening, listen to what they're saying. I've said it before, I don't think Rovers got the credit for getting the 4 in a row. They didn't get the credit that they deserved. And he's using that as a motivation, saying, right, look how it is. And then there are no handshakes. And, when Shels beat them, they're celebrating. And he'd be just saying, listen to that. Just listen to it, make sure you have it in the back of your mind for next year. And then came the weekend gone when Rovers dominated the game from start to finish. And Bradley doesn't come out and shouting about it, but you see where he's in front of his own fans and he's jumping up and down and in Talca Park. And I'd say that really gets the Shels then, and Shels have to use that now and reverse that and say, listen to what's going on there. We need to use this now to motivate ourselves to kickstart our season. Because if Shels lose tonight, they're over, completely, in my opinion. They're over. If Rovers win and Shels lose, it's Rovers look like they're going from strength to strength, and Shels need something to kickstart the season and need some sort of a motivation. And I'm sure Bradley has used that over the course of time for Rovers to kickstart their season.
So there are 2 games tonight, like you touched on there, on the Premier Division. So St Patrick's Athletic play Shelbourne and Drogheda United to entertain Shamrock Rovers. They both kick off at 7:45pm. With Shels on, they're just not creating any chances. They had no shots on target in the first half. Their goalkeeper Josh Honahan's very comical own goal, and then of course Honahan made up for that more than made up for it in the second half. But Conor Kearns kept them in the game in goal for Shels, didn't he?
Yeah, especially just before half time. Made a terrific save. But I look at Shels and they've gone away from what they've done last year, in my opinion, where defensively sound, but they were able to counter attack. Obviously, they're the champions, so teams are saying, right, let them come on to us a little bit and we'll counter attack them. But I was watching them the other day and they got into positions to get balls into the box and didn't decide to cross. It's like, oh no, we'll come back out and try keep the ball. And you're like, that's not the way Shels were. Shels were very direct, getting down the sides, getting balls into the box. They didn't do that. And then they brought on Boyd and Meepo, and you think, well, maybe they will do it now. Didn't do it, didn't get Boyd anything. There's no shots on target. And it's not the first time it's happened where they've no shots on target. So something has to change. I don't think playing Tariq in the middle of the park, I'd say he's better on the wing to get down and get balls into the box. But they seem to be trying different things and different tactics, but the stuff that that has gotten there in the first place was getting down the sides and getting balls into the box, which they've stopped doing.
Yeah, I think they got it totally tactically wrong on Friday. You look at the setup, they were trying to play a 3-5-2, then it ended up being a 5-3-2, and then McElroy and the holding midfielder were stuck just in front of them. Rovers played 3 at the back, spread them wide, and Healy just dropped into that space in the middle, was the extra man. So Chapman up front, and I think who's the other one up front, the striker as well, with him. The two of them are just trying to close down the space, get onto Pico, get onto Dan Cleary, and get onto Grace as well. Healy just dropped into that pocket and had to free them in Talca Park in the middle then, because the 2 holding midfielders were pinned back to the back 3.
And it also looked like they were just trying to take care of Bourne in the middle of the park.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was like
John Martin.
Yeah, but it was like in the middle of the park, it was like, if we stop Bourne playing, we stop Rovers playing. But you don't, because Healy probably the best player on the park. And then you look at the subs that Shels make, Meepo and Boyd coming on, you think, is something going to happen? Doesn't. But you look at the subs then when Rovers bring them on and changes the game. And Aaron Green, as clever as he is, drifts out wide. you know, and Paddy Barrett is with him. Paddy Barrett turns his back and goes back into the middle of the fence, and he's sitting there, just picks up that position, says, right, I'll stay here and get the ball, and creates the second goal. Like,
it's funny, Barry, like Damien Duff, for the player that he was, this marauding, skillful winger, he tends to be kind of a defensive first coach, does he? He leans towards a solid structure rather than flamboyance.
He did, and he Caffrey on the wing, who's excellent. He's been that one person that could fill into that role that they lost last season. But he was tacked with basically holding on to Josh Honahan and stopping his runs, and it took his
holding on to him,
but it stopped his influence on the game. He's been one of their better players in the last couple of weeks, and because Rovers play with those wing backs, and they pushed them right on, they pushed Shels right back, all the spaces in the middle, and Rovers exploited it. Caffrey didn't get on. The only time they got in behind Rovers is when Harry Wood came on, and again it was too late at that stage. Rovers had set out their stall, knew what they were going to be about, and we're going to pick them off. And again, I just thought they looked comfortable for a game in Talca Park where Rovers haven't won in a while. That's probably the most comfortable they've been, and that's probably what
the
annoyed
atmosphere
them.
was very.
Yeah, it was
like,
there,
there was nothing. There was. It was like, yeah, we're just back from a season break, and it's like, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Nothing just, you know, get behind the team, generate something to kick her on. And I think Damien Duff was trying that all the time to try get something into the team to get a spark.
It's funny, Damien Duff said he's no friends in football. He said, with the exception of the Shels staff. But I wonder, is he angry with the players? Because, like you say, Owen, the intensity is certainly not there from last season. Is there a bit of maybe they're ahead of schedule in their journey? Winning the league last year, not a lot of people call that, and now they're kind of back down to earth with a bang this year, and it's very hard to get yourself back up. You know, we've been talking about Rory McIlroy struggling for motivation. Is that a thing for players when they've just won the league when they weren't expected to?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any bad time to win a league, to be honest with you. You know, like you say, ahead of the time, who's to know if they're going to win in next year, the year after. But I do think when you listen to the same person give you the same, you know, instructions,
and he's intense as well.
And it's intense every game. Every training session is probably the same. And when you're constantly listening to that, some players can't take it.
When you were managing the League of Ireland, did you try and change it up for that reason?
You try have a go play, and then you try to be calm. And different players have different mentalities. So I remember speaking to a psychologist, on that sports psychologist, and he says, like, Darren McKeely would have a go at me. Darren McKeely would slaughter me at half time, during the match, before the match, lay into me, and I'd take that as a motivation. But you give that to someone else. Like if Darren McKeely went and had that pop at another player, he'd wilt. He just wasn't made for it. So that's why your managerial man managing comes in, where you look at one player and say he needs this, another player needs an arm around him, and that's why sports psychologists come into the game now a lot. Like, you know, when some players that I've seen going to sports psychologists are like, I wouldn't think they would necessarily need that, but they do. Like, you know, so this is where Damien, all his experience is going to come into play.
You always have one in Mary Larkin up at Shamrock Rovers, and you look at Corey O'Sullivan talking during the week at the 21s about how he's using it as a 21-year-old, and that's like brilliant foresight to go and at that age. I would love to have it, just to take the pressure off you going into a game, get rid of all the outside noise.
Culture's changed, hasn't it?
It has, and it's absolutely.
Are players more sensitive now with social media and with their phones and everything? Do you have to, like the old school bite and bollock? Is that it needs to be a bit more?
You look back, you know, old school, as you say, and you might get a newspaper report and it says everything, and then it says, Owen Heary made a mistake, and that's the one thing you focus on, even though you won the game 4-0. You know, like,
you look at your score,
you got
3
out of 10 and 7 out of 10, and it's in your head, and you're like, I didn't think I played that bad. But now, because of social media, there's so many, say, negative comments that these players read, and I look on Jason Bourne, to me, best centre forward in the league, like by far, and he's one that you put an arm around, and I'm like, Jason Bourne is a great player. Why does he not realise how good of a player he is? But sometimes you just need that arm around and say, Jay, you need to go out and do it, like, and it's different rather than having a bollock at him, because you're bollocking him, then all of a sudden he wilts, and it's like, this is, you know, backs over, like. So some players need an arm around, and some players need that motivation of having. I
don't know how he changes the approach now, though, when it's been a siege mentality, us versus them, and it was always about us versus Shamrock Rovers. And now you find yourself 12 points behind. How would you change that narrative with your players going into this third of the season, going, right, we've got to refocus, we've got to guarantee Europe first of all. That's got to be a prerequisite. You got to have that done, and then you got to find some sort of challenge going into the last third of the season.
But you've also got Europe coming up, which they need to start.
And you get found out in that if you're not right.
They need to start, being at it, because they've had a little experience of tasting Europe, and now they need to kick on a bit.
So Shels go to Pats tonight. What's going on with Stephen Kenny's side? So 0-0 at the weekend against Drogheda. Probably a distracted Drogheda because it's happening with Europe, and they don't know their fate. Makes the media misses a penalty. It's not the best penalty he's ever going to take in his career. But there's I feel the idea with Pats full of very talented players on the ball, off the ball, less convincing.
Yeah, when you look at it, their home results are second in the league table, third, or away they're third bottom, but they're just so predictable watching them.
Predictable.
Stephen was all about his wingers for the national team and his Dundalk team, and Albazzetti and Mulroney were brilliant last year. They've fallen off a cliff edge this season. Mulroney's not even playing. You miss Chris Forrester at the weekend. He came back probably too early. Stephen was talking about it. It's great to have him back for the break. He's missing against the game the other night. So the creative players aren't there. When you're pinning your hopes on the 17-year-olds, they're going to be so up and down, and he's been absolutely phenomenal for him. But Bukina was chipping in the goals at the start of the season, isn't getting in the team now. So you've got to look at where the goal is going to come for them, and they've got to do it quick, because they don't get a result tonight. They're already 9 points behind and find themselves out of the race already.
And it also stems on the back of last season when they went on a good run of 8 games, 8 wins coming to the end of the season, and all of a sudden then people are like, oh, they're going to win the league next year. It doesn't work like that, and players have that in their head thinking, oh, we won 8 games, it should be continuing on, it should be easy. Doesn't work like that way. And when teams play them, they know, as Barry said, they know how to play against them. You just move the ball from side to side, you shift across with them, and then you can penetrate them. Or you always find with Pats, they always give you chances. I think this game tonight has more motivation on it as well, because the last time they played, Stephen Kenny had a pop about Shels not kicking the ball out, or Forrester when he went down injured. So tonight, again, you're talking about Bradley and the handshake. You'll have Stephen Kenny now on Duffer Arra again tonight, I think.
And when you saw Pats beat, or Shels beat Pats the last time in the title run in, Duffer's beating the chest in front of the away or the home dressing room. Like, so listen, it comes in roundabouts, really.
What about Bohemians, second in the league? They're within 3 points if they win their game in hand of Rovers. No draws, bizarrely. Are they more forward than you thought they would have been?
No, I said at the start, I think Bows at the start of the season were playing balls sideways, backwards, a bit like what I was saying about Patsy. Always go backwards, sideways, and they've changed that. They've gone more direct at times. They've got more bodies into the box, and they're keeping clean sheets as well, which is a plus. But if you look, they've lost 8 games this season, and they're second in the league. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be happening, you know. But you haven't drawn a game yet. They have Rovers coming up, and I think it's the 23rd of this month. They've 2 big games between now and then, and they're the only ones I see at the moment being in touching distance of Rovers going forward. That's being honest with you. I look at the other teams, say, but both seem to have a little bit about them now at this present time. They seem to be going well.
Are they title contenders, or are they just going to keep Rovers honest?
Yeah, God, it's a hard one to say. I can't see anyone beating Rovers for the title. You know, it's just look at them, and they've gone so many games now. Rovers without losing. I think it's since the last beat them, they've gone unbeaten. And then you look at the players they brought on the weekend, and every test they seem to pass. And Bradley's coming out and psychologically he's saying to the people that we get better from here on in. That's putting doubt in other teams' minds. So yeah, I just think Bows would be just try to get top 3 for Bows. I'd be happy with, and I think at the moment they're in a good position.
What Rovers do really well is they get the results they need to get. Did you see that stat around Djokovic, Nadal and Federer, that they've only won 54% of the points they've played, but won 66 Grand Slams between them? Rovers come up against a Shels, come up against a past rivals, and they beat them. They might lose to a Galway or draw with a Galway, lose points that way, but they always get the big points when they need them. Like so.
Some of the Bows individuals are standing out big time. So Sean Graham at the back, it's been quality, but he's on loan from Crystal Palace, but I think he's going back. That's a huge loss, because he's been excellent. But Archie Meekison's goal, he's the composure. Like I love that type of a goal to watch it.
Yeah, it was great composure. He said he was going through, and you thought he was going to hit a first time, and he went around the keeper, stopped. 2 Cork players get back, and the keeper, and he just took to the side, shifted, and nice little slot.
Sends them for a bat, exactly, and then even the composure just to slide it in. It's like a game of Astro the way he did it. It was like a friendly with your buddies.
You wouldn't think it was a player that hasn't played much this season, but, you know, with the composure he had around the box, and especially early in the game. But he took his chance very, very well, and that's what I'm saying about Bows. They're getting early goals. Like, you know, against Derry, they scored after 2 minutes, a penalty after 20 seconds. Yeah. And then go and win the game. The same as done against Cork. They get scored early, and then Dale Rooney again, who scored in a few. Dale Rooney, has popped up with another one.
As we talk about Pat's quality, but Bowes is there too, like in the personnel, like Dawson Devoy. Lise Mousset was the big gamble at the start of the season. Connor Parsons as well. Colm Whelan scored a hat-trick against Waterford, then he's left out. They've loads of options.
Bowes need at least 2 strikers and another defender. I think that's what he needs. If they have any chance of challenging Rovers for the league, they need a striker.
Are they actually the second best team in the league?
I think so, yeah. Right. You know, but even you look, Rovers are plus 18 goal difference. The nearest to them is plus 6. Bowes are plus 4. Like, you know, you need strikers to win games. You need defenders to keep clean sheets. So losing Gretton is going to be a big loss for them. Will they take Bourne back from Galway? That's another ask, but you definitely need a centre half and maybe 2 strikers. Now,
the young fella Cathal Sullivan had a great opportunity to level for Cork City on Friday night with the header at the back post. Shawnee Maguire had an opportunity as well, but Jesus, that's a worrying performance by Cork City at home. very early in Ger Nash's tenure.
Yeah, I think they're going to lose some of their better players now in this window. I think the goalkeeper's going to go. Excuse me, going to go Truce. Yeah, like, and he was excellent. That could have been 5 on Friday, bar him. They're going to lose, I think, their centre half and Bang as well. Like, and listen, they're going to get players in. They look like he's going to give them some money to spend, but it's in that centre half position. They have got Kelleher in. His younger brother in.
He has a bit of experience now.
Kelleher, from Colchester.
Coach on probably lower divisions in England, but he seems that he's played around a fair bit, so he's a bit of experience that might give him that. And it's going to come down to them in Sligo about their home form. I think this year, like, you know, for either of them to get into that playoff position or to stay up, it's definitely going to come down to how they fare at home. And Cork the other day, you could see giving up chances, and then you look at Sligo getting a great win at home against Waterford. So
on Saturday, so now Cork City are bottom of the league.
Exactly, and now it's mind games of who can get themselves over.
Again, no, they do have a side that has talent. Like, there's a good side, Cork City.
I've watched them against Bohs when they played in Dalymount and should have got something from the game. And the same then against, it was a Pats, when they should have got something, and Pats ended up winning or dropped at that time.
Just so naive at the back.
Yeah,
they were too
on that bit of experience at the back to try help them through it.
We've commented here from YouTube from Rob B. You having this, lads? You need to stop talking or start looking at Shels as a championship winning side. They won a freak league last year, coming back from the pack, and they're at the mid table now, which is their level. Fair play to Duff for last year, but realistic expectations have gone out the window.
Yeah, I think they are like arcing ahead of where they should be at the moment. It's like last season they went and won a title. As I said, it was a poor league. As soon as Rovers picked up any sort of momentum, if they did another 3 games to go on and win that league. And listen, nobody was at it last year, so you can't say that they didn't go and want to go and deserve to win the league. Like, nobody was at it. They stepped forward.
If you're league champions, then we have to talk about them as league champions, because they won the league last year. So we can't dismiss them and say, oh well, they shouldn't have won it last year. They did win it. So they're league champions now. That's why we talk about them so much, because Rovers have gone out and beaten last year's league champions, and that's why we talk about it. So you can't just dismiss them and say, oh, they are where they are. They're not. They won the league last year. They should be higher this year because they've improved. They've signed better players. Yeah, they lost Jarvis, but they've signed better players. And obviously the expectation was he was going to move on and go better than he did last year, as in, lose less games and win the league again.
All right, so League of Ireland action tonight in the Premier Division again, 7:45pm kickoff for Pats against Shels and Drogheda against Shamrock Rovers, who now are 6 points clear at the top of the league. Lads, the FIFA Club World Cup. Gianni Infantino has his head in his hands, squirming behind the couch when he watches Bayern Munich 10. Auckland City 0. Auckland are part-time side.
Yeah, that's what happens when you put amateur teams into, against full-time pros like that. You'll always get...
It's almost an exercise in fascination about the different levels.
Yeah, and you'll see, I think they'll get well beaten in the next couple of games as well. Like, you can't...
Are you interested, lads, to watch it?
I haven't, no, to be honest, I haven't bothered watching it. I think it's for...
More watching the golf last night.
For the teams like, Paris Saint-Germain and things like that.
Paris Saint-Germain hockey led Atletico Madrid 4-0.
Exactly. I think for them it's just keeping players ticking over. It's nothing really serious. I know they all want to win it. Probably the latter stages will come good for them, but I just think it's for players to choose players, seeing what they like for going forward for next year. It's a lot of football for players. I think it's
almost like a welfare issue.
Yeah,
it is at this stage, like post-season tournament now. It's not even a pre-season tournament.
Yeah, welfare is a good word there by John, because that is the question. And then this
just seems like a vanity project for Gianni Infantino.
Yeah, definitely. But there's no sympathy out there for these footballers with the schedule because of the money they earn. But eventually, money is irrelevant to the human condition and the body, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, if you want quality in the actual tournaments that matter in the season, then these should be discarded. Like, it is a vanity project. You have like your man, the YouTuber sitting beside him, he's putting him in a seat.
Speed. He was like, I want to be the FIFA president for a minute, and then Brazilian Ronaldo's next to him fixing the blazer.
The Champions League final, or anything. He's not doing that at all. It's just ridiculous. Like,
well, that's what they're trying to do, I guess. I mean, look, there was one of our colleagues, Feligan, was watching the PSG Atletico game, and there was an ad came up during the match, and it went to split screen, 50-50 split screen, and he was lamenting it, and I said, Phil, I'd say Premier League, give it 5-10 years.
Yes, that's in the NFL every break, isn't it? It's sponsored by somebody.
Was there a point in football in the modern times where we did lose the run of ourselves? Like, there must have been a year, maybe it goes to about 2 or 3 years period, where we have amazing football and footballers, but the soul has gone out of the game.
Good question.
Well, you could probably say the 1982 World Cup, when commercialism really came into football. Now, is in a positive way, because But that's when I think we got onto the slippery slope with Haviland and Blatter, and when did the soul go out of the game?
Yeah.
Ooh, was it the first Club World Cup when Manchester United didn't play in the FA Cup?
2000, 99, 2000.
That was one example. When VAR came in.
Yeah, because you don't like VAR.
No, because VAR to me is a symbol of sport as entertainment. And that's what this is. This Club World Cup is sport as entertainment. Like get messy here. And VAR for me was, okay, let's have the reviews, let's have the drama, let's have this NFLization of a fast-paced game. So that for me was another soul sapper. Probably the FIFA scandals. Like a World Cup's going to Qatar, Russia, Saudi Arabia. That's when the soul is going out of it. Clubs being bought by nation states. Look, we're probably going on a massive tangent here at the end of the show, but you're talking about soul. It's accumulation of many things. Probably Miguel Delaney's written the best about. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's
probably why Artie's doing so well now, because he's still honest to it. Yeah,
well, there's an authenticity to the league, and that's why I asked. The first question I asked was, is the manager stuff pantomime a little bit? Because I started first covering the league as a very young reporter in the late 90s, and it was brilliant every week. Pat Dole and Damien Richardson, and you were probably playing at the time, lads. Maybe yourself, Owen, but Barry might have been played later. But
thanks, John.
But just the one thing about the League of Ireland is, like, and I said this about the golfers earlier on, can the regular sports Joe, the regular guy in the street, name 10 golfers in the world? And can they name 10 League of Ireland players? And I do think that's the next phase of the League of Ireland, to get the players marketed. I wish you'd see players on billboards more.
Absolutely.
I wish we'd see players. I don't know how they're going to market them, but I think they need, and I know that there's a lot of turnover of players, but just to see, like, some way of marketing these players that people get to know them, that are just not just the people who follow the league.
I think that'll come though with consistency of contracts. You're getting longer contracts now, so you're not losing these lads on year contracts to a different team, and suddenly a fella you've been following for years gone to another team. But you're right, it's got to come from the young lads. I think the Melias should be up there, the O'Sullivans. They're the ones you market, and then you watch their progression as a player, and that's how you market, I think, from a youth, because you're not going to buy into an older player. I think, well, look at Graham Burke, Jack Byrne, Honohan. Maybe you go along that line, the international players, potential international players.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone interested, the results there at the Club World Cup so far, there's been a couple of nil-alls. Al Ali against Inter Miami, Palmeiras against Porto, Bayern hammered Auckland 10-0, PSG beat Atletico 4-0. The only close game, Botafogo beat Seattle Saunders 2-1. And at 8 o'clock tonight, Irish time, Chelsea play LAFC.
I'm not as cynical about the concept, because I think that if this was done where there was room to breathe in the football calendar, then it's a really good idea for a Club World Cup, you know. But the Champions League is so big, and the Premier League is so big. You already have a global league in the Premier League, and you also have a global club league. I suppose you've got the elite club competition, the Champions League. There's no room for this, but if there was room for this, I can understand for, you know, fans of Flamengo playing Manchester City, how it might be an interesting thing, or PSG, but there's just no room.
Season tournament, I'd say, leading up into the Premier League.
For South American side, they are mid-season. Like, this is competitive for them. Luis Enrique is on record saying he wants to win it. Real Madrid definitely want to win the competition. Like, Diego Simeone did a Jake Whiten with the Bulls head coach afterwards, said, like, sure, Luis Enrique can buy a new forward anytime he wants to. Like, there's jealousy happening here. Like, it does bring out the competitiveness in people eventually.
Then you can't have Auckland in it. Like,
it is mad, isn't it?
But like, it's then, and then the whole narrative before it is the goalkeeper's working in a warehouse and it's got to take a certain amount of time off. Like, we had a little bit when Real Madrid came over. A lot of the headlines were Shamrock Rovers against Real Madrid. Like, that kind of it was a bit like, but that's, I think if you're going to have the best teams in the world, have the best teams in the world.
Yeah, fair enough. Soccer Aid was on as well there during the weekend. Carlos Tevez scored 4 goals and Cup des Irs at Old Trafford. There's a few celebrities playing. Did you ever play anything like that when Dream Team and Harchester United came over?
Yeah, they were over. Yeah, twice we played against them. Dream Team. They filled Talca Park was full twice.
Don't ask Johnny Ward about Dream Team. He starts spitting blood if he ever hears about it, because I think, was it not clash with the title decider or something? Dream Team. Yeah. I remember Dream Team clashing with something big in the League of Ireland. I think there was controversy about that.
Your testimonial, was there a few lads from Love Hate in it?
Well, they weren't. They didn't play in it, but they were there sponsoring it.
Oh, yeah.
That's through Derek Pender. His mate
very good.
So we got him in. So, yeah, as I said, like, it's the Harchester thing was the big team, but even back then they used to have charity games on a lot, like, you know, in Talca Park or everything. You had Fair City, who their actors come up and play games there as well. Like, so
did you play against Fair City?
We played at Fair City. We played actually on the team with them, in Talca Park for charity. So
Any good ballers?
There was a few decent ones, Don't ask me now the names now.
You might know the character's name.
Mondo.
Great centre forward, Mondo.
All right, lads, brilliant stuff. Thanks a million, Owen Heary and Barry Murphy.